I think once you fulfill the first three needs, it's kind of like if you've ever driven through a neighborhood, where they're building new property and you
Yeah.
see just the wood frame of a house, like it looks like a house. But without fulfilling the emotional needs of prospects, if you're talking about a website or a landing page or whatever, it's a house, but it's not really a home yet.
You hear all the bull about marketing every day. Make your money in your sleep. My new offer is crushing it. My guru could beat up your guru. It's time to go right to the source and get the truth about marketing. With your host, the founder of copychief.com, Kevin Rogers.
Welcome back to The Truth About Marketing. It's Kevin Rogers here with you. My guest today is Will Hoekenga. He's a direct response copywriter, consultant, and one of my favorite writers and teachers of direct response marketing. You can check out his blog over at copygrad.com. If you're a freelancer, you need to go to Will's site and see how I think this should be done. I've been citing CopyGrad as the ultimate way for a freelancer to position themselves in the market for years, even before I knew Will. Will is now a regular contributor to the Copy Chief blog, very proud to say, and his articles are super popular, some of our most shared content. So, Will, thanks for being on the show today, man.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. I'm glowing over here after that introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you should be, bro. You're very impressive, and I just love how what you do that I admire, and it's the same thing I admire about a lot of my mentors, people I've paid really good money to learn from, which is you make it feel easy. Because your stuff,
Awesome.
it's clean and it's to the point and it's got personality, and you're not trying to do 1,000 things with my attention.
Oh, that's good to hear because I always feel like I'm pulling my hair out when I'm writing a blog post. So it's good to know that it distills out into something of
Something
value to
sensible.
somebody.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. I mean, it's so hard in our little caves as we're creating this stuff to have it feel clean and direct and simple and fun in our minds. And then it is great to get feedback like that. But I really think you're nailing it. So don't tell too many people. That's not. Just pretend you're like Dean Jackson, and every day is just a super happy fun day.
That's right.
So I am interested to learn a little bit more about how you sort of qualify a topic to become content, because as you said, you put a lot of work into it, and some of your criteria for choosing to to release something. But right now, right out of the gate here, Will, let's give the people what they came for. Your latest post for Copy Chief introduces a really cool thing that you called the copy hierarchy of needs. Most people are probably familiar with, Dr. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'll let you explain quickly what that is. And then I didn't know that there was a designer's hierarchy of needs. That was cool to see.
I didn't either. Yeah.
And now, thanks to you, this is what a great content creator does. They create things, and then they go, now there's this, and you can have it, but I invented it.
Sure.
And so tell us about, this idea and what it is and how we can use it.
Yeah, so like you said, the whole idea of a hierarchy of needs really goes back to a dude named Abraham Maslow. And if you ever took like a Psych 101 class or anything, it probably like rings some sort of bell. But basically, all his hierarchy of needs it's based around the principle that in order for people to fulfill higher level needs, they first have to fulfill very basic needs. He actually didn't make a pyramid, but like later on, someone developed a pyramid of his hierarchy of needs that kind of presents it in a nice visual format and makes it easy to understand. But it's basically like before you can focus on stuff like having self-esteem and like having a sense of purpose and love and belonging, you have to fulfill like the basic stuff. Like you can't be starving to death, or you can't be like sleeping in the rain or something like that. So like humans all have these basic needs we need. So it's an interesting concept, and there's a lot of marketing psychology that's been written on that subject. So I, wasn't really thinking of writing a post about that, but then I picked up this really neat book like randomly off of Amazon. It was one of those impulse, like I was already signed in, so I just bought it with one click.
Right.
It's a book called Universal Principles of Design. And it's really, I'm not a designer, but after working with some really great ones over the years, it's something that I've admired at an increasing rate. And so I just wanted to understand a little bit more about it. And the book's really cool. It's like you open it up, and on the left page, it just presents a one-page overview of some design principle. And then on the right hand page, there are like illustrations and stuff that illustrate it basically. And it's really simple and easy to understand. And every now and then I just pick it up and fan through it, and I stumble upon something interesting. And in this case, it happened to be a design hierarchy of needs. And I was like, I've never seen anything like this. And it was basically, inspired by Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's like the needs that any type of design needs to fulfill in order to be great. So, it's especially for non-designers, it's a great way to understand like what a great designer is thinking about and striving for when they build something, whether it's software or a table or a painting or whatever.
Right.
But it starts with the very basic stuff. So like the design has to be functional. It has to, work essentially. Like if it's a door or something, it needs to open, and,
Right.
And then there's things like reliability. So, it needs to consistently open in the same way. Then there's usability, and that would bring in stuff like the knob needs to be easy to understand how to use. And like if it's a pull door, then there needs to be a handle so you pull it. And you like stumble upon those doors where it's like it has the pull handle, but you're supposed to push it anyway.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, it's funny how we take these things for granted that
Yeah.
these things had to be thought through, right? Like,
Yeah.
what if they just went, it's a door. They'll know how to open it. No,
Right.
there's no knob. There should be a knob or something.
Yeah. So now I'm like, I use opportunities when I see doors to act like I'm some like expert design snob. And if it's one of those doors that it has a handle on it, but you have to push it, I'm like, oh man, this is terrible design,
That's great.
So yeah, I'm a total snob now. But anyway, so I was looking at this hierarchy of needs, and I was like, I was really jealous that designers had this really cool thing, and us copywriters didn't really have something like it. But in my mind, I was starting to put things together of like, okay, like I think I see how this could work for copy, and if this design hierarchy of needs was so useful for me as someone who only has a cursory, level knowledge of design, a copy hierarchy of needs could be really helpful, both to copywriters, but even more so to, I think, people who are either hiring copywriters or who, are starting to get an inkling that copy is important, and, they want to see how their website or their landing page or whatever stacks up.
Yeah.
So that's really where it came from.
That's great. What a service, too. And I think this is why people resonated so hard with this. When I sent this out, I try to be pretty direct in my subject lines, especially when I'm, promoting content. But I think my subject line when I mailed on this piece was, you will bookmark this and refer, and refer to it forever or something like that. Because that was it's one of those things that the minute you see it, you go, oh, I want this at hand all the time. So, great job on that, dude. Because,
Thank you.
I think, and I love the way you framed it as it's not every copywriter is going to want it, just because even if it's not startlingly new to them, it's always nice to have a framework, right? And sort of a checklist of, am I covering all these important things in my copy? And there's been a fun discussion around some people saying, I might have put this in a different order or those things, and it's all healthy dialogue.
Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah.
And the discussion in the comments was really great. And I actually received what I think is my all-time favorite compliment in the comment section, which was someone described this article as the whoopee cushion of articles, which I thought was like the greatest thing ever. And it was so apparently like I don't think my dad has ever left a comment on a blog. Like I don't think he knows how, but he somehow found that comment and left a comment on that comment saying it was the highest praise possible. So the whoopee
great.
cushion comment was not only great, it also made my dad more proud of me.
It brings the family together. That's what great content does, folks. That's so funny. It's great. And so, the other thing is, again, if you're not a copywriter, product owner, anybody with a website where you're trying to persuade people to follow your lead, you get to know this thing. And if you're working with copywriters, this is a good sort of a litmus test to make sure you're working with a pro who at least understands the foundation of what copy needs to do.
Yeah.
Really useful in that regard. Cool. So let's dive into it. We've got 5 sort of layers. You took the pyramid torch and ran with it.
I did.
And let's talk about these 5 different layers here.
Yeah. So I'll start with kind of talking about the first 2 together. So these are the ones at the base of the pyramid, and they're kind of those basic needs that have to be fulfilled in order for the copy to be functional. And those are readability needs and formatting needs. So with readability, super obvious. It just has to be readable. Like, if you're writing for an American audience, it needs to be in English. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be mistake-free enough to where, the writing isn't distracting. So, the grammar doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be readable and legible. Mm-hmm. And then, you move a step up once the copy is at least readable. The next need it can meet is being formatted in a way that makes it easy to read. So, all principles that copywriters are very familiar with. Big, bold, obvious headline, white space, textual variation, so italics, use of bold, but not overusing it, just so it's scannable and easy to read.
Yeah.
So again, very basic stuff.
But important, and people,
right.
It's so easy to screw up. People think, I want to, customize the text every time that I'm putting an inflection on a word.
Right.
And, that's fine for a video script that you hand to a narrator.
Right.
But to the reader, after, 6 bolds and 3 italics and then the bolded italic underlined thing, they're going, I don't know what's going on here anymore.
Yeah.
They're just, their eyes are freaking out.
Yeah. And so once your copy at least fulfills those 2 things, you have something that is in a state where people can read it. So, it functions, it works. And the third need, and this is where, a few people, kind of a great discussion cropped up in the comments about this. But the third one is action. So for me, like if you're talking about what does a piece of copy need to do, or, wherever the copy is going to go, whether it's a landing page, a sales page, an email, whatever, like just to fulfill its most basic function, what does it need to do? Mm-hmm. And to me, the most basic function is, people need to be able to read it, and they need to be able to take an action to go to the next step, whatever it's, existing to get them to do. There has to be some sort of action.
Right.
So that is my third need. And it goes beyond just, having a buy button or something like that.
Yeah.
I wrote about, what I call action critical information. So basically, what information does someone need in order to take an action?
Right.
So, if someone's on a sales page for, purchasing software of some sort, what is the information they are going to need in order to make a decision to click on the buy button? And I'm not talking about like what kind of headline does it need? I'm just strictly talking about information. So the obvious stuff, like there's going to need to be a price would probably be helpful. That's not always on the sales page, but just for the purpose of this example, a price might help them make a decision. A money back guarantee, if there is one, that might help them make a decision. Listing the features is something they're going to want to evaluate. And then, the buy button, maybe some secure payment information, and things like that. So, you know, stuff that is very obvious, but is sometimes, people overlook it. And
Yeah.
I even talked about an example in the post where I was writing a landing page for a live event. And I sent it off for feedback, and the first thing I got was like, "Hey, dude, where the hell is the date on this?" So like even for me, sometimes you can overlook stuff like that
Sure.
if you're not taking time to think about it from the standpoint of what does like what are the most basic things people need
Right.
to know.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'll tell you, as I have this 60-second sales hook formula,
mhm,
right? And so
mhm.
I've been for a couple of years now coaching people on how to create a better one.
Yeah,
And one of the number one thing that hangs people up is not knowing what the action is that they're trying to get from
right,
their visitor.
right,
It really is that simple. It's kind of like most novelists will say, you have to know the ending of the book before you
sure,
can start writing it, so you know where you're headed.
sure,
And so it is simple, but it's huge, because not only do you need to have a checklist of all the things you cover, but start with what is the one action, the one purpose for this page. And when you have that, then it's much easier to evaluate whether every word of your copy is earning its place.
right,
Because
right.
if there's, especially if it's like an opt-in page, there's just no room for side roads or conjecture or any of that stuff. It's like,
Right.
tell me why I'm here, put a sign on the door, let me know I'm in the right place, and get me filling out some fields here.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Good stuff. Okay, cool. So now we're on to number 4.
Yeah. So my sort of theory for the first three things is that if you were able to survey sort of all of the websites in existence, I think you'd find that a good percentage of them, most websites, probably fulfill the first two needs. You can at least consume them in some regard. Then a slightly lower percentage do that, and they also are giving you a clear action to take. But like probably only 2 or 3% of websites in existence really move on to the fourth stage, which is actually starting to fulfill emotional needs in copy. And this is where, a lot of the, classic principles that people have been teaching for years to copywriters come into play, but that, a lay person probably isn't as knowledgeable about.
Right.
So, classic things like talking about benefits rather than just features, and that people will generally pay more money to avoid things like pain and discomfort than they will for pleasure. And yeah, so it's really getting to the emotional heart of what your prospects are looking for.
Yeah, you've got a good metaphor. There's a picture and by the way, you'll find this article that we're discussing at copychief.com. Just go search, hierarchy, or scroll down in the blog section. You'll see the hierarchy of needs, copy edition, or a simple checklist for ensuring your copy meets all of your prospects' needs. 2 titles.
Yeah.
Take your pick on which you enjoy more.
That's
and,
right.
And so you've got this great sort of metaphor for a house that's it's up, it's framed, and the skeleton of the house is complete.
Right. Yeah. So I think once you fulfill the first three needs, it's kind of like if you've ever driven through a neighborhood, where they're building new property and you
Yeah.
see just the wood frame of a house. Like it looks like a house. But without fulfilling the emotional needs of prospects, if you're talking about a website or a landing page or whatever, it's a house, but it's not really a home yet.
Right.
Is the metaphor that I used there. And so this is where you're going to want to bring in everything you know about who the ideal customer is, what problems they're having, and how your product solves those problems and gets them to the place where they want to be. So this is where I start looking at things, any kind of quantitative or qualitative data that you have on prospects. So especially the qualitative stuff like blog comments, maybe looking at reviews for competing products, customer support conversations, testimonials, and stuff like that, where prospects are talking about either the need or how the product has met that need in their own words.
Yeah, that's what I refer to that as the dialogue. And
Right.
I think it should be every marketer's first goal. Not to cash in or get a quick grab of money or even get people into their, sales funnel.
Right.
Your first goal should be to create a dialogue, because when you have a sincere dialogue, everything else springs from that.
Sure. Yeah.
How they see you, what they want from you, the things you teach that resonate most, and the kind of offers you should be making.
Right.
It really is like money in the bank when you have a dialogue happening with your best audience.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I even when I have the chance, like if a lot of times, or not all the time, but some of the time when I'm working on a sales page for a client or something like that, they're still in the process of creating the product.
Yeah.
And so what I like to do is draft an entire sales letter before they've even developed every aspect of the product. So after reviewing all of the data that they have on their, ideal prospect or existing customers or whoever they think this product is for, you can, by trying to enter that dialogue that the customer's having with themselves, you figure out ways to enhance the product. And so you write the sales page, and then you go and you create the product that backs that up.
Yeah, I love that. And, I'll just put a little caveat on that you have to be working with a quality client and,
for sure,
marketer, product creator in order for that to work. Because early in my career, I very quickly became sick of people coming to me and go, dude, I know how we can crush it. You just write the letter that will convert, and I'll create the product to match it. And, this cannot be a loose partnership in an endeavor like that.
No.
So just a small caveat. But I love that idea because, like you said, if there's an existing dialogue, enough is being said and revealed in regards to people's needs and desires for you to understand what they would really love. And if you if it makes it into your sales letter, and you get to fantasize a little bit, but wouldn't it be amazing if it had this?
Right.
And then go to the expert, the product creator, and go, could we actually pull this off? Yes or no, it stays or it goes. And that's cool, Will. I never really thought of doing it that way, where let's see what it would look like as an offer, as a sales presentation, before, as a criteria for making the best product possible.
And that's a really good point, because that can certainly backfire on you if if you don't feel confident that whoever is developing the product cares enough to actually try to make something worthy of the copy that you've written. But I was really fortunate to learn that while I spent 15 months working at Lead Pages, and their CEO Clay Collins, who doesn't write copy as much these days. Obviously, he's off being a CEO and working on the business. But early on, he was doing a lot of that stuff, and that was one of the earliest lessons I learned from him. And as someone who can absolutely go out and build a great product, it worked out well a lot for them. And so that's kind of where I was introduced to that idea and started practicing it.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's the perfect context for and again, a company who cares a lot about their customers, has a big staff, has a lot of customers who are very vocal about what they would like to see improved. Definitely. Or can fantasize with you about what would be great if.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of a natural segue into the final need, which is really rare to find. And I call this the belonging need. And I think very few companies or products actually achieve this. And the part of the reason for that is because you can achieve great results just meeting the first four needs.
Yeah.
Like you'll find tons of companies that are doing fantastic and aren't necessarily hitting this fifth need. But really, this is where belonging, when you fulfill it, it's where you really start creating loyal customers who continue to come back and purchase again and again. And you create customers who are evangelists, who are walking advertisements. And it's kind of weird at first to think that you can accomplish this with copy. And you can't accomplish it just with copy. It kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. Like, obviously, the product is going to have to be amazing. But what you can do with copy is if you have an amazing product on your hands that people love, you can recognize that and keep that top of mind when you're writing copy for anything, and you will find ways to empathize with people and endear them to the brand even more with your copy. And I used a few examples in the article that people can check out from MailChimp, and I won't try to talk through them now just because it's kind of hard without visuals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I talk about MailChimp and Cards Against Humanity, which is a company that's achieved ridiculous results. Like they have hundreds of thousands of people on their email list, and they get like a 60% open rate or just something ludicrous like that. And it's because people love consuming their copy. So when you can create copy that's an extension of a distinct brand that people love, that's when you can really like just gain an unfair advantage and get ridiculous results like that.
That's great. Yeah, when you can create through your messaging and, of course, the quality of your product, like you said, a belonging where people raise their hand and go, I am in your tribe.
Right.
They will wear your T-shirt for the sole reason of identifying themselves as somebody cool enough to know about you and your product. And, it's like the boater's nod out on the water. If somebody else sees you in your Cards of Humanity T-shirt, they're like, dude, we get each other.
Right. Yeah.
Very cool. That's great, Will. We've got a few minutes left, and I definitely want to ask you the essential question of this show. I'm really excited to hear your answer to this.
The essential question.
The essential question. So, Will Hoekenga, what is the one thing that you've done in your marketing that produced the most surprising results?
I think I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and like several different things recently came up in my mind that were surprising to me, and I was trying to figure out like why was I so surprised? One of them was just a lead generation campaign for a free ebook, and it was designed to build a client's email list. And then the other one was I actually helped launch a membership site just in the last month, and the sales page, it was a really long, really intensely researched. Lots of hours went into it. I worked on it with another copywriter who's fantastic. His name is Tim Branch, but we worked on that together, and it ended up converting at about 13%, which was, I think, the best conversion rate I've ever achieved on a long form sales page for an offer of that nature.
That's great.
And I was thinking back to myself, like why am I surprised? And the surprise, it really stemmed from my doubts going into both of those, which were, for the sales page, I was doubting that I thought it was too long, and I was getting feedback from that on the client too. Like they kept asking, like, "Is it supposed to be this long?" which copywriters will laugh at because we've all been through that.
Right.
And then with the lead generation campaign, I was running a split test on it between a version of the opt-in page that was really short and all of the content was above the fold, so it was just like a picture of the ebook, a headline and a subheadline, and then the opt-in. And then the other one, it had a couple more sections that had like the ebook had some really awesome artwork inside, and it kind of showcased that. And there was an about the author section, and he had some really great accolades, New York Times bestselling author and all this stuff. And when I showed those two versions to the client, the longer one with all of the cool pictures and accolades and stuff obviously looks better. And so they're more inclined to think that's going to win. And so long story short, the short one ended up having a 16% higher conversion rate. I think it converted at about 56%, and the other was in the 40s. But what I took away from those is how easy it is to get in your own way when you're creating something, by things like worrying that your long form sales page is too long, or thinking you need to say more. I think a big part of being a good copywriter is having to know when to get out of your own way, and when to stop and when to keep going. And so I'm just continually surprised by that in everything I see, which is why I'm a big advocate, like most other copywriters, of testing. But that's what I would say is my essential thing, is being aware of how easy it is to trip yourself up. And I think that's why I gravitate toward like creating frameworks and things like that, that contain things that you inherently and you've learned them so many times, they're like ingrained in you, but they're easy to forget, and they're easy to doubt when you're in the heat of the moment, and someone's campaign or their launch is on the line and your reputation is on the line. Sometimes it's hard to stick to those things. So
right,
that's what I would say.
I love it. Yeah, find ways to keep ego out of it, keep bias out of it.
Right.
Always test and do at least 2 very different versions if you're going to test.
Yes.
I like that, because a lot of people talk about, only test one little thing at a time, or how are you going to know what moved the needle, right? But to begin with, start with extremely different versions in regards to length, maybe even look and feel, maybe even messaging, all that stuff. And say, all right, is there a very clear difference here between what's resonating?
Right. And unless you're getting 100,000 visitors a day, you don't need to be split testing like a red button versus a blue button.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. And everybody's got to come to the article at copychief.com. Just come to /TAM. That's where the podcast is. Or just come to Copychief. You'll see the podcast button. Click that. Come to this episode. And I will link the article, and I will link Will's site at copygrad.com. You have to be on Will's list. He's always putting out just amazing content. Love his point of view, sense of humor. And you definitely want to come to this article to get the full picture of the copy hierarchy of needs and the ass pillow example.
Yeah, I realized that we hadn't mentioned the ass pillows, and I was getting a little sad. So I'm glad. I feel like if people have made it to the end of this episode and they were still not sure whether they were going to go read the article or not, they all will now, because they want to know why we are talking about ass pillows.
It's a very important lesson too.
Yeah,
your ass will thank you. So thank you, Will, and really hope to have you back on this and Copy Chief Radio, which is launching soon.
Oh, awesome.
Which will be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a little bit more like talking directly about things that are happening inside a Copy Chief. And,
very cool.
So I'd love to have you on that show as well.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on this. It's always a blast to talk to you, and I really appreciate it.
Likewise, man. We look forward to your next article, and we'll talk soon. See you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks again for listening to the Truth About Marketing podcast. If you like this show and you think other people would like this show, the best way to spread the word is by reviewing and rating the show in iTunes. Just log in, click review, leave a big old fat 5-star review, and let everybody know that you dig the show so that they can dig it too. To get all the links and resources we mentioned on today's episode, please go to copychief.com /TAM, as in Truth About Marketing. And if you'd like to learn more about how you can improve your sales copy with templates, formulas, coaching, feedback, or hiring a pro, do all that on the inside of the members area of copychief.com, and I will look for you there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.